Hey guys, this is me Akash here for Biology Vibe. So today I'm going to talk about responses to abiotic factors. So abiotic factors we have already studied in the previous lectures like temperature, pH, your soil, etc. So what are the responses does a biotic factor has to the change in abiotic factors? We are going to deal with this topic in this lecture. Okay, so starting with the key term first. The key term is here is homeostasis. So just suppose that this is your internal environment and this is your external environment. So no matter what happens in the external environment, the internal environment will be kept constant. For example, at the external environment it's 3 degree, 23 degree, or say 45 degree Celsius. So no matter what happens, the internal environment of that organism will be kept constant. For example, in case of humans, it's 37°C. So it's need to be kept constant. I'm not talking about just the temperature. I'm talking about the pH levels. I'm talking about the salinity, that is the osmolarity stuff also. So homeostasis is basically the ability of an organism to maintain the constancy. This is the key term, constancy of the internal environment that is inside the body despite of varying external environmental conditions. So the external environment keeps varying, but the internal environment needs to be kept constant. Now the question arises, why we need to keep the internal surroundings constant? So we all have heard about enzymes. So it works at a particular pH, it works at a particular osmolarity, particular temperature. So if enzymes are the key components of any metabolic activity, right? So for the working of the enzymes, we need to keep the internal surroundings constant. So this is the one of the key terms, which is the base of the chapter, that is homeostasis. Now the thing is response. How do the biotic components respond to changes in the abiotic components? So the first thing is regulate, conform, migrate, or suspend. We are going to discuss one by one in detail. Okay, so the first one says regulate. Okay, so maintain homeostasis by ensuring constant body temperature, that is thermoregulation, constant osmotic concentration, that is osmoregulation. So these are the two key terms out here. When we concentrate on when temperature is kept constant, that's called thermoregulation. When osmotic concentration is kept constant, that's called osmoregulation. For example, we take shivering in cold and sweating in heat. Okay, so it's cold. The body needs more and more heat. Shivering is a kind of sorry, mechanical activity which a body does in order to generate heat. So when it's cold, we need heat. So shivering takes place when it's heat outside, and the body needs to release its heat so that the temperature can be like controlled. So it goes for sweating. So regulate is one of the key responses which a biotic component does in order to maintain its internal surroundings constant. So the second part is conformers. Okay, so say it's the okay, so this is your internal surrounding, this is your external surrounding. Internal surrounding is A, external surrounding is A. The external surrounding changes to B. The internal surrounding also changes to B. So in response to external surroundings, the internal surroundings will change. This is called conform. Conform, you all know, conform means to align. So the internal environment conforms changes with the external environment. So this is the second type of response. Followed by the third type, that's migrate. Okay, so just take like this is environment A, this is environment B. So for timing, say time is X. So at X time, the environment A is favorable to an organism. At time Y, the environment is not favorable to that organisms. So what will an organism do? At time X, when it's favorable, it's in environment A. When time Y is there, it's unfavorable. So the organism will move to a second surrounding which is hospitable, that is which is favorable to that organisms. Now this movement is temporary. Okay, so the movement when environment A turns to favorable, it will come back. So move from a stressful habitat temporarily to hospitable area. This is your hospitable area at that stressful time, and return back when the stressful period is over. For example, migration of birds. So this is the second one, that is migrate. This is your second response. Now the thing is suspend. Sorry, migrate is your third and suspend is your fourth. Suspend means when an organism develops mechanism to deal with stressful situation. Now when suspend comes like spore, we all know about bacteria. It encodes itself when the surroundings are unfavorable. It forms spores. That's process is called sporulation. So it forms spore and becomes inactive for that time. Similarly, seeds go into dormancy state, that is metabolically inactive type. Hibernation, estivation, these are like in order to this bears undergo a sleep type, it means a long sleep, that is reduction in metabolic activities when it's too cold. On the contrary, snails undergo estivation when the environment is warm or hot. So hot is there, estivation, cold is there, hibernation. This is one of the suspension which I would say suspend. Similarly, diaspause, stage of suspended development. So what is the difference between all three? We are going to discuss in detail when I'm going to discuss about the questions, NCRT back questions. So this is an important diagram. So see, on the Y we have internal level, in the X we have external level. So see this one. The internal and the external, no change is there because they are able to regulate it. The internal will be kept constant, regulators. Conformers, internal is changing, external is changing. I said now, environment A means A changes to B, external changes to B, so internal will also change to B. So this is, they will conform. Okay. So the third type is partial regulators. Firstly, they'll change, but then they act as regulators, like that is maintains its pace constant. So partial regulators, the term given here. Now comes adaptations. So what happens is like the external surroundings changes. So all these other responses are not there. An organism makes modification into it so that they can adapt better. There are certain modification in their own systems so they can move, like adapt better in their surroundings. An ability of an organism that enable them to survive and reproduce in that habitat. Kangaroo rats, for example, in kangaroo rats there's fat oxidation and there's a scarcity of water out there. Okay, so fat oxidation is there, water is a byproduct kind of a thing. So that changes further, there is like concentration of urine is there so that they can get a little more save water. Actually, desert plants we all know, like leaves turned into spines, therefore like transpiration is not there. We also know the concepts of camp plants that like work at night. Cold climate mammals, they reduce the surface area so that the exposure is low. People living in high altitude, we know about RBCs, their production and all. So oxygen content is low, RBC would increase so that more oxygen can be trapped. Like desert lizard, they have their own mechanism. For example, there can be behavioral adaptations also, that they will hunt during day or night. For example, if they hunt during day, the outside temperature is very high and it will be difficult for their they'll lose their body water. So they'll not hunt during the day, they can hunt during night when there's no overhead sun. So this way transpiration, like evaporation is low, so they can save water. So desert adaptations are there. So these are several kind of adaptations which an organism does. So that's kind of it, guys, and I hope this video helped you. Thank you.